Hello, you're watching France 24. It's 6 a.m. here in Paris. Let's get you up to date with our headlines. Portugal smashes its way into the finals of the Euro 2016 Football Championships with a 2-0 victory over Wales. Ronaldo's team will meet the winner of tonight's France-Germany match in the final on Sunday. Politicians from around the world react to the findings of a 7-year inquiry into the UK's invasion of Iraq. The Chilcot report was damning of Tony Blair's leadership. We'll be hearing from the veterans who fought in that war. And the US Justice Department opens a civil rights investigation into the fatal shooting of a black man by 2 white police officers in Louisiana. Phone footage of the shooting has reignited controversy around police killings of African Americans. Hello to you. This is today's Live from Paris. I'm Belle Lupton. Also coming up in the programme, in focus, our team is hot on the trail of the latest illegal migrant route to open up into Europe. We'll be meeting the Syrian refugees still desperate to make the dangerous journey. And curtains up on 70 years of stage sensations. The Avignon Festival is underway in the southeast of France with actors, dancers and singers celebrating a very special birthday this year. Thanks for being with us here on France 24. Now, it's my guess there'll be a fair few bleary eyes in Portugal this morning. Celebrations continued late into the night after the Portuguese football team sailed into the finals of the Euro 2016 Championship, beating Wales 2-0 in Lyon. A good night for Cristiano Ronaldo, who scored the first goal and made the second, and a good performance too from the most expensive footballer in the world, Gareth Bale, although he wasn't able to make his team go any further. Let's have a listen to the reactions at the stadium last night.
Cristiano was dazzling. It was a really, really good game.
It's glorious, splendid. To be in the final with all of the Portuguese people who live here in France. We did it, we're in the final, and we're going to do everything we can to win it.
It's been a great experience for the Welsh. Came to the semi-final. The country, everyone's proud of the country, and we can be proud of ourselves as a nation. No one had ever thought, let alone Wales, would be in the semi-finals.
We were proud to come this far. We've done really, really well. So that's why you can see the fans are so happy. That's why we don't want to go home. We don't want to go home. But we've got a brilliant time. It's brought everyone together. It's put Wales on the map, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Well, Mark Thompson stayed up to watch the match and he's here in the studio with me. Hi, Mark. Thanks for being with us. Must have been a short night for you. Now, Wales were the last of the small teams in the competition. Was it just a step too far for them?
Yeah, it's kind of sad to see them bow out after we've seen Iceland go out as well. It feels like that part of the little guy, the story of the little guy that we've been really hanging on to for the last few months after Leicester City also won the Premier League title. It's just kind of faded away now, and it's kind of the 3 big hitters left with Portugal, Germany and France. Wales, they put up a valiant effort. You have to bear in mind this is the furthest they've ever gone in a major football competition. They managed to make it through to the quarterfinals of the World Cup back in '58 and lost out to Pele's Brazil, and this is the best they've done since then. They did very well in the first half, but ultimately, and Bale did very well himself, but ultimately when this was a match which hinged on Bale versus Ronaldo, the 2 most expensive players in the world, and teammates, of course, at Real Madrid, it was Ronaldo who came out on top. Bale dominated the first half, but he couldn't score. Ronaldo came out in the second. He scored one and created another, and ultimately that is what takes Portugal through to the next round. And talking of Portugal, they're going through to that next round. Can they go all the way? Well, they've been the so nearly men on quite a few occasions recently, most notably in 2004, that this is something that they're going to really have to get out of their heads when they play the final. Because back in 2004, they made it through to the final of their own competition in Portugal, ended up losing out 1-0 to Greece in a shock result in that one. So they're going to have to clear that out of their heads. They made it through to the semi-finals in 2012 last time out as well. So as I say, they keep getting closer but not quite there. At the moment they're in this state of flux where they have a new wave coming in, players like Renato Sanchez and Guerrero. And at the same time they have these more experienced players, let's say, like Pepe and Carvalho, who are on their way out. So this might actually be a good time for them to merge those two things together. But most importantly, they have match winners like Ronaldo, like Nani, people who can get a goal from nothing. So they might stand a chance, but I have to say the winners of France versus Germany rather are probably going to be favourites for the final.
And looking ahead to that semi-final tonight, France versus Germany, what can we expect from that?
Old foes, yeah. France don't have the greatest of records against Germany. Not many do, to be honest. But one of the big things that Germany have is this huge record against sides hosting tournaments. In fact, they haven't lost to a host side since England in 1966. And if you remember 2 years ago, they actually thrashed Brazil 7-1 in the semi-final. So France are going to have to forget about that result and just focus on how they're playing. Now, the last time out, we saw France play against Iceland. They won 5-2. Definitely their best performance of the tournament so far. But at the same time, we don't know whether they're going to stick with that side or take a more defensive lineup this time around. They had a couple of players missing from that match, and N'Golo Kanté and Adil Rami. They might bring them back against Germany because they're going to offer a much more attacking threat than Iceland did last time out. My head before these two semi-finals said that it would be a Portugal versus Germany final, and my heart said it would be Wales versus France. And I still think that's going to be the case. It's going to be Germany-Portugal, just based on the experience and just based on the talent of that Germany side.
Well, there you go. You heard it from Mark Thompson first. His ticket for the final of the Euro 2016. And he stayed up very late and then woke up very early for us to bring us that. So thank you very much to you, Mark. And just to remind you that tonight sees France meeting Germany in the second semi-final match of the Euros, the Euro 2016 Championships. That'll be in Marseille at 9 p.m. French time. And of course, our sports team will be bringing you all the action later on. Now, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair faced the press yesterday following the damning results of the Chilcot report. 7 years in the making, 3 times the length of the complete works of Shakespeare, the report is the result of the Iraq Inquiry, set up in 2009 to look at the decision-making that led up to the invasion of Iraq. He passionately defended his decision to go to war in Iraq, as Catherine Clifford explains.
As families of some of the 179 British soldiers killed in the Iraq War called him a liar, a murderer and a war criminal outside, Tony Blair faced the press for almost 2 hours. His voice cracking at times, he admitted mistakes had been made.
The aftermath turned out to be more hostile, protracted and bloody than ever we imagined. The coalition planned for one set of ground facts and encountered another. For all of this, I express more sorrow, regret, and apology than you may ever know or can believe.
But the former Prime Minister stood firmly by his decision to go to war, saying he thought the world was now safer as a result. The report found the invasion had been based on flawed intelligence and assessments that went unchallenged, with senior ministers being bypassed. Chilcot also concluded the threats posed by Iraq's weapons of mass destruction were presented with unjustified certainty. Another damning conclusion, that peaceful options hadn't been exhausted. Blair emphasised he'd insisted to the US on taking the issue back to the UN, but said that Russia and France's intention to veto any further resolution had pushed the UK and the US into action. Not an inch of backtracking on his decision for Blair, but a different story for his Labour Party. Current leader Jeremy Corbyn apologised on the whole party's behalf.
I've just been meeting a group of families, military servicemen and women who lost their loved ones. I apologise to them for the decisions taken by our then government that led the country into a disastrous war.
Fallen soldiers' families and a group of cross-party MPs will now scrutinise the report's findings, looking to pursue legal action against Blair.
Well, the public reaction to the Chilcot report has also been swift. Our correspondent Duncan Woodside is in London, where he spoke to some of the Iraq War veterans and their families.
Anti-war campaigners picket Queen Elizabeth II Centre in Westminster, where the Chilcot report was made public. But it wasn't just the usual collection of left-wing militants. Veterans of the Iraq War were among the protesters.
And my job, in black and white, was to attack civilians in their homes, trash their houses, steal their stuff, and take their men away to be tortured in American prisons. That's what I was involved in Iraq, and that led to me refusing to carry on serving out there. This is the establishment's report. Who did they interview? They interviewed politicians and generals and heads of MI5 and MI6. And what those people said has now been crafted into something for public consumption.
This is David. His grandson Daniel was just 21 when he was shot and killed while serving in Iraq. David came to Westminster with his other grandson. While he feels the report could have gone further, David's encouraged by some of Chilcot's findings.
We have concluded that the UK chose to join the invasion of Iraq before peaceful options for disarmament had been exhausted.
But some human rights lawyers are disappointed.
What we would have liked the Chilcot report to address would have been the allegations of war crimes that went on for many years during the British invasion and occupation of Iraq. There are hundreds still of such allegations.
The report includes some damning criticisms of Tony Blair, including a previously unpublished memo to President George W. Bush 8 months before the war, saying, "I will be with you, whatever." The outcome doesn't therefore seem to be quite the whitewash that some campaigners had predicted.
That was Duncan Woodside finishing that report from London. Celebrations are in full swing for Muslims across the world. The festival of Eid al-Fitr marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan. But in Baghdad, a shadow has been cast by the car bombing on Sunday that killed at least 250 people. Instead of celebrating, Iraqis have been commemorating those killed. Sunday's attack was the worst the country has seen in the last 13 years of war. And the vestiges of wars waged during the Blair and Bush years are still haunting current administrations. Current US President Barack Obama has again put the brakes on a US withdrawal from Afghanistan, despite his election promise in 2008 to end America's longest war. Obama said the situation in Afghanistan was still too insecure.
The security situation in Afghanistan remains precarious. Even as they improve, Afghan security forces are still not as strong as they need to be. Now, as President and Commander-in-Chief, I've made it clear that I will not allow Afghanistan to be used as safe haven for terrorists to attack our nation again. The United States will maintain approximately 8,400 troops in Afghanistan into next year through the end of my administration.
US President Barack Obama speaking there. Hundreds have gathered for a vigil outside the shop in the US city of Baton Rouge, where black man Alton Sterling was shot to death by 2 white police officers. Many chanted the slogan "Black Lives Matter," one that's been used after other similar events over the last few years. Protests started after the shooting in Louisiana, sparked by a shocking mobile phone recording which shows Sterling already on the floor being held down when he's shot. The US Justice Department has launched a civil rights investigation in an effort to keep tensions from boiling over. One eyewitness spoke to the media about what he'd seen.
The time I get outside, they are throwing him on top of the car. From there, they tasered him. Then other cop tackled him onto another vehicle. From there, they threw him onto the ground where both of them got on top of him. One of them screamed, it was like, gun, gun. Shot him 3 times. Then they're telling him get on the floor. He's already on the floor. They shot him 3 times already. Then they shot him another 3 times. Time
for a look at the other world stories we're keeping an eye on here at France 24. The US has put North Korea's leader on a blacklist for human rights abuses. It's the first time the US officially sanctions Kim Jong-un and is likely to anger the nuclear-armed nation. The sanctions also apply to several other individuals and government departments and will freeze any assets these officials have in US banks. Protests in the streets of Rio de Janeiro just a month before the Olympics are due to start there. Brazilians are angry at the millions spent on the Games while they're undergoing deep austerity cuts. The demonstrations took a violent turn later in the evening. An Argentinian football star, Leonel Messi, has vowed to clear his name after being slapped with a 21-month jail sentence by a Spanish court. Messi and his father were found guilty of failing to pay more than €4 million in taxes. But the prison sentences are likely to be suspended, which is the norm in Spain for first offences for non-violent crimes. Now, here in Paris, a court has sentenced two former Rwandan mayors to life in prison for their roles in the mass killing of ethnic Tutsis during the Rwandan Genocide in 1994. The judge found the pair guilty of genocide and crimes against humanity, but, as Elliot Richardson reports, they deny any involvement in the murders. A warning, some viewers may find some of the images in this report upsetting.
The Paris prosecutors have laid down a marker. On Wednesday, the court ruled that 58-year-old Octavian Ngenzi and 64-year-old Tito Barahira were guilty of crimes against humanity, massive and systematic summary executions and genocide in their home village of Kabarondo, where around 2,000 people were hacked to death while seeking refuge in a church. It's the longest genocide sentence ever handed out by a French court, eclipsing the 25 years handed to former Rwandan army captain Pascal Simbikangwa in 2014.
It's a decision that we can rejoice in. It wasn't a foregone conclusion. And I find that the sentence in France for life imprisonment for genocide and crimes against humanity is a strong signal against all those that we pursue justice for and against.
The violence in the town of Kabarondo arose a week after a plane carrying the former Rwandan president Juvenal Habyarimana was shot down. With ethnic tensions simmering, Tutsis sought shelter at the church, but on April 13, 1994, Hutu extremists stormed in and committed the genocide. The court heard that Ngenzi was the leader and supervisor, while Barahira was described as the dreaded machete officer. Only a few hundred survived the mass killing. Some were present in Paris.
I'm glad this has been done by France. It was a long wait, but it's been worth it. It'll never bring the people back, but it's at least a little bit of justice for the victims.
22 years on, Ngenzi and Barahira are behind bars. Wednesday marks a symbolic day for the 800,000 people murdered in the Rwandan genocide.
Now, if you speak a bit of French, you may know Avignon as the place in a nursery rhyme where people famously dance on the bridge, though I'm not sure my voice is up to singing it at this time in the morning. And this week, that nursery rhyme is pretty close to the mark because the Avignon Festival is now in full swing. A performing arts extravaganza that takes over the city in the southeast of France every year. And this year, it's celebrating its 70th birthday with a look back at some of its most memorable moments. An 18-hour marathon performance of Shakespeare's Henry VI, for example. Let's have a listen to some people who are there.
We see tons of things we wouldn't see anywhere else. We can talk with the actors. It's really lively. There's lots of variety, and I think it's accessible to everyone.
Of course, Avignon is an important festival, known throughout the world and in Turkey, where I come from. It's been going on for over 50 years without us. This is the first time we're here, and we're very happy.
It's a celebration. I feel like all my friends are here, my family, everyone's here to see me. Tonight we're going to have a huge party, and they'll all come to my show.
You're watching France 24. It's coming up to 6:20 here in Paris. Let's get you up to date with our headlines. Portugal smashes its way into the finals of the Euro 2016 Football Championships with a 2-0 victory over Wales. Ronaldo's team will meet the winners of tonight's France-Germany match in the final on Sunday. Politicians from around the world react to the findings of a 7-year inquiry into the UK's invasion of Iraq. The Chilcot report was damning of Tony Blair's leadership. And the US Justice Department opens a civil rights investigation into the fatal shooting of a black man by 2 white police officers in Louisiana. Phone footage of the shooting has reignited controversy around police killings of African Americans. Let's take a look at the markets now. And we'll first be seeing how things finished up on Wall Street last night. US stocks reversing early losses to close higher on Wednesday, those modest gains due to positive US economic data and a late jump in oil prices. And here's how the markets are trading in Asia today. Asian share markets creeping higher after that upbeat US economic data took some of the sting out of the latest Brexit scare. Well, to anyone living in the UK who's feeling uncertain about their future, France has one word to say: bienvenue. Paris is trying to lure London bankers in the aftermath of the Brexit vote. The scheme includes deductions for non-salary perks like companies paying for children's school fees, and also deductions for revenue earned on capital held abroad. Here's Josh Vardy with more.
A pledge to make Paris's tax regime for expatriates the most favourable in Europe, just part of French Prime Minister Manuel Valls' bid to set the centre of global finance in Paris.
We want to build, altogether, the financial capital of the future. Make Paris the capital of smart finance.
As the UK deals with the fallout from its vote to leave the European Union, European capitals have been greedily eyeing up the City of London, ready to take any business that may want to relocate. Valls' pitch is to make Paris more attractive to global finance, specifically businesses who have long complained of France's indifference to the sector, as well as high costs. He says that the favourable tax regime applicable to expatriates and French nationals returning to France will be extended from 5 to 8 years. Another of Valls' major suggestions was to create a multilingual one-stop shop for foreign businesses to help with the administration of setting up in France. The Prime Minister also revived his promise to bring corporate tax down from 33% to 28%. However, Paris has plenty of competition from other European capitals. Frankfurt, Berlin and Dublin have all launched similar bids to suck business from the City of London, by far Europe's most powerful financial centre.
Time now for a look at what our environment team have been up to this week. And it's all about extinction, because species are now disappearing faster than at any time since the dinosaurs' fall. Scientists say it's largely driven by humans, so in Down to Earth we're looking at efforts to reduce biodiversity loss across the planet before it's too late.